In modern video games, we often see the player progress through levels, power up, collect items, and gain strength or powers that make them feel superior to the other entities in the game. In Zelda, Link gains hearts and weapons. In Pokemon, your team evolves. And in Mario, you unlock new abilities as you progress. But what if you never gained these upgrades? What if you're simply another element in an ecosystem? In the small indie video game Rain World, you play as a small simplistic creature known as a slugcat. You're small, have no line of defense other than your ability to pick up and throw items, and everything around you is trying to kill you. From ravenous lizards to large predatory vultures to even the rain, death looms over you. However, you aren't the sole target in this ecosystem. You are a part of it. Vultures will attack lizards, a group of scavengers are willing to be befriended at the right price, and even the most powerful creature fears the rain. Death is inevitable, and it will be forced upon you. There is no escape, no power-ups, no leveling system, and no map or guide. You cannot change your nature, but you can exploit the tools around you. If this game sounds difficult, it's because it is. You will cry, you will feel enraged, and at some point, you'll quit. Yet despite the difficulty and short-term frustration, something is enriching about the Rain World experience. Coming back, challenging your mind to find a solution that isn't conventional, and learning how to adapt creates this profound feeling of satisfaction and appreciation in the long run, when death is no longer something you fear, but run toward. To start, the limited game mechanics cause a steep learning curve that, while difficult, forces the player to become innovative in the way they play as a slugcat. In Rain World, you can pick up items, throw items, and store an item in your stomach. Since there are so few tools at your disposal, no one to guide you on how to use them, and no given direction, many new players experience a sense of disorientation and frustration because of the lack of guidance. Looking at the game reviews, we can see that many of the reviews discuss the frustration of having the lack of guidance and tools. As a one-star review states,
"As someone else said before me, I tried so hard to love this game, but I couldn't. The absurd difficulty of some random platforming passages make no sense, and the pathetic creature you're incarnating as just never stops drowning. The artistic direction is magnificent, the lore is fantastic, and the sound design is a delight, but the controls and the immense difficulty of some very boring random moments make this game unplayable for me."
This player felt like the game was too hindered by its game mechanics, making it overly frustrating to play. In this case, the player thought that the difficulty outweighed the other gameplay factors like design and environment. Most players get to this point because the simple truth is that the game is difficult. I've experienced this type of frustration as well. It's made me drop the game for a few months. After rage quitting the game, I revisited it 3 months later, and I examined the section of the game I was having trouble overcoming, in the area of Chinipikan. I was struggling to make it past the lizard-infested path towards the Karma Gate that led to the wall. So, when I came back, I knew that my usual playstyle of just trying to avoid the lizards wasn't going to work in an open space. So instead, I grabbed a cherry bomb from farm to raise and brought it back up to Chinipikan. When I had to face the deadly white lizard that had killed me so many times, I threw the cherry bomb, and while it didn't harm the lizard, it scared it away from its usual area, allowing me to pass through and make my way to the wall. When you pick the game up again and force yourself to find a way to overcome the difficult learning curve, you're met with an incomparable sense of euphoria. This feeling has been studied, though not in the context of playing Rain World. An article by Genius Crate, a video game 3D model company, describes that
difficulty in a video game triggers the release of dopamine, a neurotransmitter that is linked to pleasure and reward. When players defeat a tough boss or finally complete a hard level, the feeling of accomplishment is heightened by the challenge they face.
Rain World withholds the sense of accomplishment from the player for a long time, forcing them to be humble, patient, and master the world around them. But once they finally kill their first vulture or parkour through a challenging area, the feeling of immense satisfaction creates a deeply enriching experience for the player. A 5-star review of the game states,
"I love this game so much. It does have a steep learning curve for the newbies, and some components are hard to identify on your first run. Over time, you'll recognize those naturally and master various skills that are so satisfying to execute."
This player specifically highlights the satisfaction that Rain World gives the player once they overcome the learning curve. So while Rain World's difficulty may warn off players who can't think critically or look for alternative solutions, for those willing to pick the game up again despite the difficulty and keep playing, it becomes one of the most unforgettable video game experiences. This effect is not limited to Rain World. In the video game Hollow Knight, you can get upgrades. It's a similar open-world exploration environment to Rain World, giving it an extremely difficult initial learning curve. You begin with only the ability to jump and swipe enemies away with a sword. To get the first upgrades and to unlock new areas of the map, you have to defeat extremely difficult bosses with limited game mechanics. When you do achieve an upgrade, the difficulty of an enemy increases significantly. So like Rain World, Hollow Knight's enriching experience also stems from challenging the player almost to the extreme and then giving them a sense of euphoria when they can master the game given to them. Moving on from game mechanics, Rain World's subversive ecosystem design, which forces the player to be a piece of the ecosystem rather than something above it, creates a sense of inferiority that, while initially infuriating, leads to deeper appreciation for the environmental depth of the game. Rain World is different from other video games in the sense that it mirrors a real ecosystem. There's a food web. Even when the player isn't in the vicinity, other organisms still interact with each other. Vultures in the game are solitary hunters like many birds of prey species in our real world, like hawks, eagles, and crestals. Scavengers mimic primates in the sense that they form packs to hunt and gather and protect their young. They also tend to be more intelligent than other species. The slugcat species best parallels crows, in both the way they're placed in the food web as both a predator and prey, and in the way they intelligently use the tools around them. While being in a constant threat from your environment can sometimes infuriate the player because they never feel like they necessarily advance out of their place in the food web, the ecosystemic parallels with the real world creates an extremely engaging environment that the world builds in a way most games don't. In HTWO's video titled Why Rain World Has the Best AI, he discusses the behaviors of lizards.
So if you're caught by a lizard, you're not necessarily instantly dead, which means that you can just sit and watch the lizard try and carry you away to its den. And if you're lucky, another lizard will come along and fight over you, causing the lizard to drop you and allow you to escape. And this behavior emerges purely because the lizards will fight over food. But not all of the lizards will do this. Each lizard type has different behavioral attributes. They have different levels of aggression and different abilities, and they'll react differently to the player and to threats like vultures.
As HTWO describes, the small details such as the behavioral patterns of lizards create an immersive, cruelly realistic environment for the players to be a part of. This means that while the player may be subjected to the cruelties of the food chain, this real-world reflection of an ecosystem leads to a deeper appreciation for the game design as it sparks the player's initiative to adapt to their surroundings. This deep appreciation for the game is best reflected by the art community this game is drawn. We see various forms of art from people creating original characters to animations, and to best capture the appreciation for this game, I've interviewed the biggest Rain World fan I know.
Oh, I love Rain World. Oh god. Okay, I played Rain World for like more hours than any other game I think combined, and I can't really pinpoint one thing about it that just brings me back, but I could talk about a few. I think the procedural animation really helps because the characters are like interacting and living in the world instead of just walking back and forth and waiting for the player to kill them or something. It really makes Rain World feel, like a world instead of a game. Like any other game, I would be like, oh yes, I'm playing a video game, but Rain World is like an experience. When I ask someone if they've heard of Rain World, they will usually go like, no, what the heck is that? But if they have heard of it, they'll probably say something like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. Isn't it like really hard? And it is. I spent my entire first playthrough like so glued to the wiki map, which was probably not the intended play experience. But it did get me past a lot of the harder parts because I knew I wasn't just like fighting for my life to get stuck in a dead end. I think some of the frustration definitely comes from the idea of not knowing if you're progressing or not. And you never really get upgrades like you might in other games, but instead you get learning experience. But actually, learning more about the cruel world that little slugcat has to live in is a huge part of the fun, and it's so satisfying when you finally become more than just a survivor. Thanks for having me!
All in all, Rain World is a phenomenal video game whose incorporation of difficulty to humble and create a receptive player allows the environmental design to hit so much harder, creating both frustration and appreciation for the game as a whole. In the future, I hope to see games take inspiration from Rain World and continue to play with the balance of challenge, design, and player experience. Thank you for watching.